We're going to call it to order. That's the gavel. The Buildings and Grounds Committee meeting. Today is October 3rd, Thursday. Could we please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance? Pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Here, George.
Thank you.
Do you have agendas available? Everybody get one?
Thank you.
Okay. With us tonight, we have a packed audience, a lot of community members here tonight. As you can gather, they're lining up outside the vehicles the traffic is heavy as well. But we do have representatives from Axis Architecture firm, led by these two stellar gentlemen that I've worked with in the past. Perhaps a quick introduction, if you don't mind, just a little brief history of Axis and your work here at Gateway.
Sure.
My name's Craig Collins.
I've been good for 2 years.
Axis Architecture. Our firm is located about 5 minutes over the hill. Some of you may remember we did the work at the auditorium renovation at the high school, things like that. The football field. So we're happy to be invited back and looking forward to working on this upcoming project.
Thank you, Craig.
Any questions?
Your recent work, I know we spent probably 2 or 3 meetings reviewing some of the work, talked to a number of different individuals that you've been associated with but most recently Latrobe. Is it a middle school or elementary?
Elementary.
Okay.
Brand new elementary school. What was it, 7?
About there, just under $30 million. It's 130,000 square feet.
Grades K through
K through
5,
six.
6. Okay.
That's the way it should be.
Yes. 26 million or 30 million project.
Just about 30 million.
And how many students in that group of
It
grades?
is somewhere around 900, so a little bit smaller than the building you're talking about.
Not much.
Not much.
Yeah.
The high school.
So,
Brand new.
and-
Go ahead. I know you were going at.
well, Fox Chapel, they just
Yep.
built an elementary school. It was roughly 24 or $5 million.
That's correct. Plum recently in that same.
In that same ballpark. So, as stewards of the school district's money, the obvious question
Absolutely.
is, are we on the right path here?
Yeah.
We're renovating for how much money?
Well, that's what we're here
I mean,
to
the
talk
ballpark.
about. 25, 30 million.
You guys just built a new one for that amount of money.
Right, it's a little bit smaller building, it's an elementary building, so
The features aren't necessarily conducive to a middle
I
school.
got you.
Right.
You know, plus, and we'll talk about this later on, the fields, auditorium, a number of
Right.
features that I don't believe are
A middle
included.
school is more expensive than the elementary school, and a high school is more
Sure.
expensive.
Michael, can you put up a photograph of
Yeah.
Latrobe? Is it elementary? Is that what they call it?
Wow.
Just have an idea, and then I'll hit the
Things you
first.
know.
First bank, I think.
Gymnasium.
That's the old one.
Oh,
Michael, you need help?
is that what it says, overview, or is that the old one?
Shotzi.
Was there just a brownfield, or was there demolition of an old facility?
It
Or
was a park. It was a 1 square city block,
Gotcha.
tabletop level, which you never find here unless you're
Right,
in.
yeah.
Nothing to demolish.
Okay.
Clean.
Clean. It's clean of a site as you never find.
Yeah.
There we go.
Bada bing, bada boom.
Perfect. We see it.
Yep,
fine, right?
got it right there, Micah.
So that's the main front entrance.
And that is something we had even talked about, part of the, I'm not going to say confusion, if you're from the area and you're familiar with Gateway Middle School. You drive in and you recognize where the main office is. However, for those people who maybe turn into the campus, perhaps get confused as they're looking at the auditorium, thinking that's the entrance. That is clearly a defined space as the office.
There's no question.
There's no question
That
about
would
that.
look on the front of Ramsey.
We're going to talk about that in a few minutes here. But
Yeah, one of the goals is the architecture of the building itself should say entrance, not just the sign that says entrance.
correct. The features that would be welcoming to,
And that goes all in with security and safety on
Mhm.
campus too.
You don't have people visiting side doors, knocking on and trying to.
Yes. and I'm sure as your work has evolved over the years, especially within the last 5 to 10 years, security has become a major focus, either with renovation and or new construction.
Yeah, I think I mentioned it. We're working at Leechburg School District right
Mhm.
now. And part of the renovation was to put bullet-resistant glazing on all the first floor windows.
Wow.
And that's
It's a pretty big expense. It's
Yeah,
expensive.
I can imagine. I mean, could you ever imagine that you would be doing that when you first started
Yeah, always-
educational architecture?
Right.
Riverview did that before Leechburg also.
Riverview as well. Interesting. Okay, item number 1 on our agenda, Ramsey Elementary. I know, Mr. Bova, we had met probably a year ago, I would guess, including a number of teachers, toured Ramsey on a couple of occasions, and Ramsey Elementary was the last new building in the district. And whenever I say that, understand that Ramsey was built in the late 60s, 1970, open-air concept building. Not a whole lot of renovation has taken place to Ramsey over the years. A few of, or I should say the majority of complaints have come from the open-air pods that encompass the building, and teachers literally are right next door to one another with an open-air wall and door access. One of the things Mr. Bova, all of us kind of agreed upon was, it just doesn't make sense in this day and age. Security also being another factor that, is there an opportunity to really close in the different pod areas of the classrooms? And we undertook that at the beginning of this past summer.
Yes,
Work is
it's complete.
pretty much complete.
It was completed prior to school opening.
Teachers have had wonderful reports on it, or are thankful they're able to hear each other, or the students,
hear each
not
other.
hear each other, but hear the students during the lessons, and the work came off very well. And I know Bob took that on in your men, and pretty much 2 months of work that,
It was solid, down to the wire when we finally got all the locks working correctly.
That's correct,
The
yes.
technology is out there.
and interior-wise, there's been some updating with painting. Also, we have the ceiling tiles from the all-purpose gymnasium.
Yes, they're due in actually any day.
Okay. And I met with Rebecca. She was aware of it. She didn't know when actually installation. I said probably over maybe Thanksgiving break or wherever we get an
There's not much of a
opportunity.
break there actually for us, but as we do it, we'll go in and do so many at night, that's all.
Those were original tiles from
1970.
60, 70, whenever the building was constructed. So one of the things we noticed on the tour, when we looked up at the ceiling, it kind of looked like,
Looked like they used to allow smoking in there, is what it looked like.
which they probably did back in the day, but I'm not
Right.
saying that.
And they'll be white versus a cream color, so it'll brighten that area up.
It will brighten it up, definitely. With that, we had talked about the outside of Ramsey, and Mike, are you able to zoom in on that? There's a large, I'll say ugly looking, just sea of concrete as I describe it, and no real focal point for an entrance. It looks as if there was a flower
It's a tree.
That was a tree right there?
One of the
In the middle?
trees.
Oh, okay. I thought that was almost like a flower, like pot or something, yeah. But that was removed several years ago, and really nothing else was done other than fill it in with new concrete. And even on the exterior front door of Ramsey, there's not enough signage or recognizable area that is welcoming to say, this is Ramsey Elementary.
Right, if you zoom back out a bit, you can see the driveway approaches from what would be like 7 o'clock. And
Yes.
that corner of the building, as you approach, at first, that looks like, maybe that's the entrance.
Because there is a sign down in front there
Right.
that people
right,
look at and say,
right,
well,
we
maybe
can't
that's the
see it
entrance.
there.
Yeah.
So, right, so.
Oh, there we go, Micah.
Where-
There we
Oh
go.
my God, there it is, right.
There's the sign.
So you think, oh, maybe that's, how we get in and maybe not.
And it's a unusual looking building because the pods, the classrooms, almost every one around the perimeter has 5 exterior doors, right?
Each one,
With the pod.
yeah.
So it is an
So
interesting,
there were like 34 doors, is that right?
Yes.
34 exterior doors.
More there than
1970, late 60s. I don't know what was going on
It's what
back
they
in
were
that
doing.
time.
That's the way they were designed.
But interestingly enough, when we talked to the teachers about
Yeah.
this element in terms of the security,
Concept from Cal.
They liked it.
They liked it because, right, if there's a threat from inside,
They're right out
they
the
open
back
the door
door.
and they're outside, which when.
Not that it was planned that
No,
way.
well, no. So when we first started talking about the number of doors, I thought, well, this is horrible. Anyone could.
Yes,
anyone.
yeah.
What if you get in one of these doors? But apparently, it's now perhaps a brilliant
Brilliant idea.
security idea, right? And the window, they're glass block windows, right?
There is some glass
Oh, that's right,
block
some were
at some of the,
replaced.
at the entranceways,
That's
not
right.
into the classrooms.
Can we, is there any way to zoom in on?
Can you go up the driveway there, Mike, go in that vehicle?
Yes, unfortunately.
It doesn't take you
I can
up.
try and find a photo.
All right,
Okay,
no
well, that's
problem, no
fine, that's
problem.
fine, yeah. But you see the building itself, interior-wise, it's in fair condition. We've added the air conditioning and
Yeah,
some
just
other,
2 years ago, all new rooftop units over there, so it's been functioning
It
very
still
well.
is
Yes.
peculiar.
Oh,
When you
very-
do-
very much so.
When you do find the main entrance and you walk in,
You're lost.
there's a huge.
Huge.
Wide, it looks like it could be like
A
Latrobe
runway,
Airport.
yeah.
And so there's a big setback office, and as a consequence, the guy who's doing security's got a little
desk
desk that
on the
was
right.
left over from maybe Pitcairn Elementary, maybe. Sits on the right, it's,
Yeah, the office isn't directly accessible from the entrance.
No,
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 right,
no.
you have
It's,
to
yeah,
cross.
you're right. You gotta walk in and,
which, and we talked about that both in terms of traffic flow and
Yep.
security and everything else. And I'm sure if you guys went through there, you would find enough wasted space to build
Oh,
another elementary
it's-
school in there.
We looked at that several years ago.
Yep.
We did the carpeting job there.
Mhm.
We looked at the entrance and we looked at the way the office is, but
Correct.
at the time, it was a carpet only.
All right,
they're tearing down those types of construction buildings, open air concept across the country nowadays. They are, but we're not, because we like Ramsey. So, but we're changing it and making it better. The opportunity for the governors, if we can go back to the, call it a governor's drive, the up top look. Bob, you maybe want to describe visually what we're,
Well, what we're looking at there is where the sea of concrete is the area that is quite hazardous during drop-off and pickup times with buses and cars. There's only one way in, one way out. What we would like to do is cut back into that sea of concrete to make a pull-off for the drop-offs and allow more room out in the front. It's approximately 80 feet across. So that's what we're looking to do. Pull them in, keep those folks safe, cut down on the number of accidents that
That-
we do have there
that
every
will
year.
allow access for the buses to continue past or other
Or other
cars,
vehicles.
vehicles.
And while doing that, install bollards.
Security.
So nobody could drive right on through our front door.
A marquee in the front
For a
there.
marquee, we have no signage there at all. So that's our initial intent, is to make this area safe and much more accessible.
I know several of the bus drivers, and they said, out of all the schools, that
it's the
school is
worst.
a nightmare. They said it's a nightmare. Well,
It
first
is.
of all, they just said, can't the Ramsey parents understand to put their kids on the right bus, first of all? Because they all drop their kids off, and they said they don't understand the bottleneck that they cause from that. They said it's horrible.
Absolutely right.
I've never witnessed it, but they said it's a nightmare.
It's
It's a
difficult,
nightmare.
yeah. it
And
really
I've
is,
heard
yeah.
from them, there's been several accidents there.
Yep. So that would be the first step that we would like
And if you're
to do.
on the curb and then walking onto that concrete area, it's overwhelming, the size, the space,
It's
the area.
bigger than this room.
Yeah, where you're just walking.
And along with that, the concrete over the years, I mean, you can see just from there at least 3 different colors. So there's been at least 3 different
Yeah.
installations of concrete. We have a lot of tripping hazards. We want to eliminate that. And this would be the time to do that.
And there's also an opportunity, if you notice upon entrance into Ramsey, there's no sign up above that top area. It looks like it's
It's a
tannish.
fascia. It's, in that picture, it's cream, but it is
Cream.
now tan.
So the idea that we had talked about, even a little similar to what you did at Latrobe, a little arched, nothing fancy, but just something that would have the letters Ramsey Elementary. So we've been working on bids, specs.
And it'll be on the agenda for Monday's meeting to work with Eads Engineering to prepare all the bid specs for us, to get it out to bid now, so when June 1 hits, we're first on the list to get our job done.
Great.
Any questions on Ramsey?
Yeah, Hank, are you okay with that cutout there?
With what?
With the bus cutout or the drop
It's
off?
like a governor's drive, cutting out that
I think
concrete.
it's a good idea. We did talk
We
about
did,
that
yeah.
way back, well, not way back, several years ago when we were looking at it previously. Because we also looked at trying to get a loop all the way around the building, and it just wouldn't happen.
Yeah.
The space, the area in the rear of the building is not, yeah.
Well, what about in the front when we talked about putting a loop in the front for a drop off? Yeah, we talked about that.
We-
That's on
But
our,
that was only if the main office was going to shift to that front of the building.
or as
Yes.
Neely stated, the parent drop off
Correct.
is a
Yeah.
problem. And we've looked at that Governor Drive potentially coming from Monticello and back to Ramsey, to allow a separate drop-off area for either the buses or
Correct, yeah.
or the cars, one or the other, to alleviate that congestion. That's a much more expensive proposition, but we're still going to keep that in mind and look at it.
I think we did some sketches for that several years ago. I probably trying to dig them up.
You want to dig them up and,
If you
yeah.
wanted to. It did, it cost more money to do that. And I think there were some grade issues that we were dealing with.
That is correct. It's steep grade
There is.
coming off of Ramsey Road up to Ramsey Elementary.
All right.
Okay, University Park. I'm going to turn this over to Bob and Access because they actually went over to University Park. We have 4 elementary buildings. University Park is the only one with the second floor. And for years, I mean, we haven't really had access to the second floor via any elevator or, I mean, it's just been a manual man lift and carry, so to speak, up the steps if you need to get someone up there. And I think we're at the point now where we need to develop an idea to put something in place where if we have wheelchair students, we have to make it accessible for them to reach the second floor. But
Yes, what we've looked at just recently is adding a limited use lift. And Hank and Craig and I went and looked at it, and they're the experts with all the codes, and that necessary evil that we have to deal with there. But we looked at some good options, and right at the moment, we're putting some numbers together to see where that would come, and hopefully we can add that to our upcoming budget and get that put in.
We've looked at different options, but, you know, the chair manual, or not such
The
a
chair
chair,
lift
chair with the
and-
kind of the rail at the bottom of the steps, so we didn't think that would
Not
be a
comfortable with
good
that.
idea with that, based
Yeah.
on the elementary
Once we
students
did
and, yeah.
tour the building, Hank came up, he looked at all the areas.
Lawsuit waiting to happen.
And actually selected an area that I thought would work really well in the back
Oh,
stairwell
I know.
without interrupting usage.
You'd say the back stairwell in the far,
Be door 10, which is right at the end of the building.
Be right in here.
Yes.
There's a storage room next to this.
You have
okay,
an entranceway there with a storage room adjacent on the first floor and the second floor. So the shaft for this limited use lift would actually be in there and not take up any hallway space or confine it any more than it already is. So
Okay.
we would lose a little bit of storage, but to gain, you know, this apparatus would be well worth it.
What are we storing there now?
Supplies, papers,
paper.
pencils, notebooks.
So you'd be able to find another place to put
I
all that?
kind of thought of a place already to construct closets for that.
Okay.
That's always been a problem at all the schools,
And
is storage.
That's storage the worst. Ramsey's the best, and that one is the worst for extra space. So I do have some ideas that we can put in some storage to replace that.
Any questions on University Park with the,
Yes. Since you were talking about signage, you can't tell where to turn when you go into University Park coming up with Knoll. If you're going up College Park, there's nowhere that shows turn left to go to.
You
School.
are right, yeah.
And then when you get up to the school, there's a little tiny sign, and there's no signage at all in front. There's nothing that shows that there's a school up there.
Yeah.
So if you're doing signage, I would put something, this
How
has
much,
been like this.
how much of that land do we own?
I was
on
just
the
about
drive?
to ask that question.
We own down to the crosswalk.
I mean, on the.
Well, there's a right of way on each side that's public.
3
So,
foot right away.
no, it's actually 25 foot from the
Oh,
center of
okay.
the road. So we own, not we own, but it's public right of way. So getting a sign in there, the neighbors may not like it since they maintain it.
Right.
But I think that's a good idea. Because when I first started here, it took me an
That's-
hour
yeah,
to find that
absolutely, yeah.
school.
Yeah, I couldn't find it. When I first ran for election
Yeah.
and I was going up there, I had no idea where it was. I
Yeah.
missed the road, went
And
around
Val, you
3
even
times.
said
It took me an
I had
hour
no
to
the
find
next
that
street down.
If you go down College Park, Micah, can you
She's right.
pull that up?
Yeah, there's a
Right.
little sign
Keep
about this
going,
big
keep
that
going.
says school.
That's.
And
Right
it's
there,
that's
right
on
there.
Behind a
Knoll.
tree.
That's on Knoll. That when you're coming up College Park, right,
Yeah.
Right there, right?
okay, there's nothing showing that there is a school at all up
There
there.
used to be a sign down there, didn't there?
Not,
I
since
don't-
my
I don't
business
remember
line.
that.
I don't ever
I thought there was a blue
Right
sign.
there.
It's on the right.
Yeah, it was on the right that said
not there
Ramsey or
anymore.
something, or
UP.
It's not there
University
anymore.
Park.
I've never-
So that's where you go and you're gonna make your
right by
left.
the stop sign. There used to be a sign there.
It says University Park and arrow pointing.
Yeah, remember that?
Those were good times, Cody.
Yeah. That's when I was on
We
the
do
back
have a-
here, but
Cheryl,
We
can
do have a bit of a
can
sign.
you confirm or deny
That there's a sign there?
that there was a sign there?
There used to be a sign there, and I go up and down that road all the time since my daughter's in Valerie does too, because she lives over there. And she's right, there is no sign there, you guys.
well, you know who
We
owns
we
that
do need
house
one
there.
there, yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
you
you know
also-
who owns that
Al
house there.
Arlette.
Who need?
Al
remember?
Arlette used to
Big
be a
Al?
maintenance
He's
guy.
right
farm
on,
guy?
he's on the right side.
Yeah, Mary, the kitchen manager.
Maybe he got mad at the schools and
Took
ripped
the
it.
sign out.
Yep.
Big
Oh,
Valley
Jack, look
fence.
into that.
Was that the fence over there?
The white one,
It's the other
That,
one. It's
it wasn't always there.
Maybe that's when the sign.
Jocularity.
But I mean, even in the front, when you get to the school, since you're talking Ramsey, you know, like the entrance, there's nothing there that I can recall. Is there, Bob?
There's
They
not
have-
much at that school to begin with. It's
Right.
kind of a plain Jane school. when you pull into the parking area, I mean, there's only one doorway that's all glass. So it's kind of evident, but it is very plain Jane.
Can you get the front of it, Micah? The front of the school?
No, this,
Yeah, I agree with Val. I don't ever remember seeing anything there. And I don't, the front of the
There's
school
a
has
sign
much of
on the
nothing.
side of the building that says University Park, but it's
Yeah.
the back of the stage.
See, that's when you turn up, nobody knows where to turn.
Yeah.
Here, there's a little yellow sign right
Yeah,
there that says
that's it.
school, but
Oh, jeez.
it's literally the size of an
All right,
envelope.
and I'm just
I'm not sure if
thinking
we
out
talked-
loud here. Exactly, that's where I was about.
Well,
just
we need a better sign.
I mean, I recognize we need a better sign, but just put it on that post.
Yeah.
I'm sure if we talk to municipality, they'll be okay with it.
Well, the sign's already there.
We just need to make
The
it-
sign's there, you just
Yeah.
need a bigger one.
All right, we're on it.
Link, you missed that.
Is it the name of the road?
Yeah, then they have a sign thing up there. Hey,
What's the-
let's
They make signs.
make us a
Turn on.
sign.
Yeah,
No. Who's up in
No.
the sign department up there?
No, N-O-E-L.
That would be,
It's
Paul.
small, looks like a
Could be a
road sign.
gateway or municipality.
No, the municipality.
That's Paul. You just know.
No problem there. Okay.
And say, hey, make us a big one.
All right.
It says University Park element.
Any other questions with the
Yeah.
University Park?
Walker did a good job
Signage.
fixing the road. Up there.
The road at
No
UP?
more ponds.
No more ponds, no more
Should finally
mosquitoes.
fill that in.
New black pond. What kept right down
Elementary school, yeah.
On the sign,
We'll do.
not just school.
Yeah. Okay, Micah, if you can go to the rear of Gateway High School, back behind Tech Ed.
Not a wood shop or
That alternate entranceway.
Yes. Micah,
They wanna
a
put
little
a-
trouble in geography class?
Enter exit
The map's spun around.
Okay.
by the
All
wood
right.
shops
You know, I'm just joking with you.
instead of where the loading dock is.
Yeah, to the left, keep going left, left.
That's what I'm saying.
All right, up, up. Pull it out a little bit.
Right where that dock is.
All right, right there. If you see the
Yellow.
parking lot behind the high school, adjacent to technology, that's our technology education wing. That tan, cream colored, that's not a pad of concrete, or is it, Bob?
It's a loading dock pad of
Loading dock
concrete.
pad?
It was just a little bit of concrete by the fence you're talking
Yes.
about. Yeah.
All of those trees have been removed, and you can see our storage shed to the left of those trees, straight ahead by the track. Over the summer, we've replaced the track. All of those trees have been removed, thus exposing a chain link fence that was probably installed in 1958. That has been removed. We are currently adding
Black vine.
black vinyl fencing the whole way up to where the ticket booth is. And then we're going to continue that work along the rear of that parking lot. That would be almost adjacent to down below where the bank is, correct, Bob? No.
The bank's out
Yes,
pretty
ba-
far, but.
The veterinarian hospital.
Yeah.
Yeah, you can't see the fence, but the tree line,
Vine infested.
yes, vine infested. It's just,
So it's behind the, it's in those trees somewhere.
you got it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
if you drive up there, I mean, now it's wide open
Oh, I'll be.
Yeah.
with all those trees being gone.
So we're making a lot of improvements aesthetically to that area. Those trees are no longer there. It's kind of wide open. You're able to see it. Bob's also going to be doing some work on the actual shed itself, painting
Right.
it.
You could actually go by that concrete pad there.
Yes,
and
there's
see
a
the-
roadway down.
You can see the field from there.
Yes,
An access road.
there is an access road there, actually,
No,
which
that
we.
was back
Yeah,
there.
it was so overgrown.
I
It's
never
ridiculous.
knew that was back there.
Ridiculously overgrown.
Well, did you get prices for that, for all the trees to come down?
I don't know what it is off the top of my head. We did that, and proved that earlier this
I
year.
just, okay.
So
I can't
that's
remember
been
what the
ongoing.
numbers are.
Fortunately, we've had some excellent weather where we've been able to mulch a lot of that area back there. The fence guys, I've been in contact. I actually had to call Bob yesterday or the day before about some areas that they've discovered that were rotted out with some of the posts. So making improvements there. Micah, if you can
There
go.
it is right there. It's all
Oh,
gone.
it's all gone. Micah, outstanding. Yeah. You're able to see the fence on the left-hand side there, and the view that we formerly had was all trees. So you can see the area all cleaned out now. Pretty amazing.
Yeah.
The shed will be painted, perhaps a new roof, mulched, flowers. Bob's looking at me. He just walked out on that one.
He's flowers, water, he's coughing.
Yes, yes. But you could see the work, landscape work that was completed over the summer. And then, of course, I believe that's the black fence.
It
I was
is.
gonna
Yes.
say, is that the
You
black
could tell,
fence?
yes. Right to the left of that school bus, extending the whole way down. And then eventually, with your mouse cursor, Micah, if you can go to the right of the bus, like a pointer, right back in there. That's the next area that we're going to be working on with the fencing and eventually removal of some trees and debris.
That's a safety issue also.
It is. It's just needs to be done. Micah, if you can go to the corner of the student parking lot auditorium, going up to the auditorium from the refreshment stand, tennis court area.
Coming up from the student parking lot to the corner.
We can provide a real quick overview. The auditorium, 13, 14 years, Craig? 14 years? 15 years? 15 years? It's amazing. 15 years ago, the auditorium was built on an area of land directly outside of the old high school office. And that corner from the roadway that kind of drops down into the student parking lot. You able to do that? Drop down and look at it or no? There we go. Keep turning. Right there. Keep going.
Come up the driveway
Yep.
to the walkway alongside.
Stop. Left, left,
Corner.
left, left. Right there at that corner. Bob, you want to talk about what's happening there at that corner?
What is there is a raised sidewalk alongside the auditorium that was built in '04. The wall that is holding the sidewalk up is Versalock. It's deteriorating due to all the rock salt over the last 15 years. The face is just completely coming off. The area where the stairs are is starting to really crumble. So what we're looking to do is keep that in place and in front of that, encapsulate that with a concrete wall, poured concrete,
The whole
new
wall?
sidewalk, and
The whole wall?
the whole wall all the way up. Michael, can you move a little bit? All the way to the archway. It's in bad shape. It's 15 years of rock salt melting over top of that surface, and if you drive by, you can easily see the condition of it. So this is another project that we've discussed. Other folks have looked at it. We want to put that on the agenda along with Eads Engineering to do the paperwork and put it out to bid so we, again, can have it done on our timeline, not someone else's.
That needs done.
If you have an opportunity, please drive up and take a look. Anybody that has a question? Okay, moving right along. Provided also everyone here with just a review of the feasibility facility study that was completed by another architectural firm. That took place probably over a 5-6 month period. The information that you see in items 1 through 7 were highlighted at the August meeting. Since Axis has come on board as the architect of record for the district, we've met with Hank and Craig, Bob, Mr. Telly, a couple of times, reviewed work that you guys have done, timelines. We thought we'd just give an idea, an overview of what a timeline would look like, perhaps either from here in October or November moving forward, if the board would be willing to move forward with the proposed renovation. So Hank, Craig, if you maybe want to just provide just a quick overview of what a timeline potentially could look like.
Sure. I brought some copies. Do you want me to pass them out? So that
That's fine.
It's easier when you're looking at it, because it's a big project, so it adds up. It's a 3-year process from the time you start designing it until the construction is completed.
Thank you.
So when we talk about now, we have to remember that now is
now.
occupying is 3 years from now. Although this building will be occupied the entire time it would be. Did I give anybody 2? I don't keep there.
You could have an extra one here. That's fine. You could email me later on.
I won't know what I'm talking about. I don't know.
Mhm.
So what we did was, especially when you're talking about large projects, there's 2 ways to look at a school project. When you're building your schedule, you look at your completion date and work backwards from there so that you can occupy a brand new building for the start of the school year. Or you look at, if you're doing a renovation project and it's going to be occupied during the renovation, finishing over the summer isn't quite as important. So then we like to look at what the best time to go out to bid is so that you can get your best prices on your construction project. Because as the project gets bigger, you can save 5% or more of construction costs bidding at one time versus another time, depending on when contractors are hungry or not. So what we did with this one was we found the optimum time to go out to bid is the end of the year and the beginning of the new year, December, January. It's the best time because contractors are now trying to line up work for their future year and they're finishing up other work and the work's coming off their books, they want to put new work on their books. And so if you can be, like was said earlier, if you can be the first guy in line instead of the last guy in line, you get better prices. You get more contractors looking at it because more contractors are hungry, and you get better prices because the contractors are hungry. So that's what we did here. We built the schedule off of a December, January bid time frame. And for a project this size, there's basically a year's worth of upfront design and then review, code review, and permitting review, and bid. Because it's not a small project, so you're not going to bid it in 3 weeks. You're going to want to give the contractors 6 weeks to bid minimum. So when you add all that up, there's a year. So that means if you're really looking at hitting that December, January bid time, you're talking about it at the right time now because you really want to start designing towards the end of this year, if that's the print you're looking at. And in that schedule, that gives a project that size while occupying and doing renovations and additions is a 2-year construction project. So that would allow a completion in December of 2022, which allows the school, the Christmas break, to get the contractors out and move whatever's in the last phases there. So it's another thing that kind of works well. So that's what this schedule shows. It shows a bidding in December and January and completion of the project in December of 2022.
How much deconstruction does this involve?
There's going to be a decent amount because in looking at the plans, and once we get into schematic design and really fine tune this design and do it economically instead of 50 additions all over this building, maybe trying to consolidate some things, that you can keep your costs down a little bit better that way. That's why we think the numbers can be lower than what the feasibility study said they were. But to answer that question, we'll know better after schematic design. But ideally, the way we like to design is to minimize that type of thing and put the additions in places that make sense, not only to the layout of the building and the function of the building, but also economically for the construction of the building.
How much would it cost to completely rip down that school?
Well, I don't think the cost to rip down, the demolition cost to rip down the school would not be the lion's share of the cost of what you're talking about. What the lion's share of the cost would be rebuilding that much square footage.
I'm just curious, what would the cost be for a school that size, ballpark?
We've had some numbers,
There are some estimates in there. I
Yeah.
believe it's,
almost $1 million.
yeah, I want to say something under that, but 800,000
Yeah.
or something like that. But the issue is, any square footage that you can save and renovate, you can spend $150 a square foot to renovate versus $250 to build new. You can save $100 a square foot, and if you're only talking about a 10,000 square foot building, it doesn't make much sense. But when you're talking about a larger building, those numbers add up.
From that drawing there, I know that's the new proposed one, where is the demolition gonna take place?
Well,
Like, what's gonna be,
in this drawing, the way this layout was, basically the entire building is being encompassed with additions. So everywhere where an existing building is touched by an addition, there's work on the existing building, on the exterior of it, to remove exterior skin and make it interior skin, and to do that type of thing. So that's one of the things we're talking about. The more you can avoid touching the building everywhere, the better the more economic your structure would be. I don't know if I'm answering your question.
Well, you can kind of see on that where the lighter gray lines are, with the white space in between.
That's the
These areas are
existing
completely
hallways.
demolished
Yes.
in this plan. This space, this space, this space, that space. Those areas are existing building that are completely gone. This green stuff is existing building that remains, and the blue stuff are the additions. So there's a lot going on that plan.
I'd like to ask a question.
Absolutely.
I have a question about this, because at the beginning of the school year, there was a discussion on the news about a lot of the districts with the construction projects, especially if you're gonna renovate, which I think is smart. Once they got into the walls, and they found things like asbestos, mold, all kinds of interesting things, how do we know up front? You don't know until you start ripping down, because that seems to be a huge delay. I think they listed like about 6 school districts this year that had a problem with that. That's more likely to happen with existing older building than if you're putting a new young stuff.
And I'm sure they could speak to the projects that they've had, yes.
With every construction project, we build in a contingency for unknowns. For renovation projects, the contingency is higher than the contingency for new construction. So there's
Unforeseen conditions.
There's money built into the budget for the unknowns that are going to come up in a renovation project.
But that's money as opposed to time, because once you hit, I guess that was the conversation on the news. All these districts anticipated an opening at the beginning of the school year.
They had a
all
delay.
delays
Yeah.
Due to that, which again, you can't control.
Can't control until you crack it
So you
open.
have a- Yeah, exactly, because that's not something they have to sort of construction.
And
We have
that
to
piece
play football games
becomes
away, remember?
a bigger headache when it's a new building or a building that you're trying to finish over the summer for the start of the school year. Whereas a building like this where you're occupying and phasing the construction and going around as you're doing, and you have a December completion date, you're still if you for some reason miss that December completion date, you're still occupying the building, you're still working.
The kids are still in. But then my other question is, that the kids are still in the building and you hit on something, because my daughter worked for CMU and they had construction of other buildings. They had to move everybody away from what they found because you have black mold. So there's potential you can have to ship kids?
No, because
Because
when they're
when
working
you
in
get
that
there.
area, we will have already shipped the kids.
Okay.
We don't work in an area that's occupied. You build some additions so that, like, and to oversimplify things, you build a pod of 6 classrooms. It's a new addition. And you move 6 classrooms out of the existing building into that, and you renovate those 6 existing
So
ones.
it's isolated
right.
enough away from the kids that are living there.
That's
And you
correct.
work around the building.
And part of the study, and probably one of the main reasons why we're looking at the renovations, not only the age of the buildings, but 50 to 60% capacity of that middle school and this middle school. So there are a number of rooms, and speaking with Mr. Telly, that we would be able to access while a certain wing is being renovated or reconstructed.
Is that also taking into consideration that the noise and construction and timing of when students are in classes taking tests?
All of
and-
that. And I lived through a $35 million renovation of Gateway High School, and we were able to truly manage that depending upon what they had planned, whether or not that was going to happen at night or during the day, weekends.
And believe it or not, it's hard to fathom, but the students themselves get used to it so quickly.
Vanilla.
that
Yeah.
Remember the vanilla?
It becomes normal for them. It's more parents and teachers that have to manage with the renovation than it is the students. The students are so adaptable, kind of fall right into it.
Okay.
Now, this architect firm designed this one, or was this the other?
No, this was all part of the feasibility study. We've taken a number of the different options and condensed down the square footage. And part of our initial meetings, we came up with not necessarily this concept, but something similar that would allow less square footage to meet the threshold that we thought the board would perhaps look at as far as a renovation cost. And that's where that man comes into play, but we'll get to you soon.
Hank and Craig, you guys are okay with this design?
Well,
Well, not just
start.
Yeah.
on the street.
no.
This would be, as we get into schematic design, which is the first 2 months of the schedule, we massage this and get it to something that works for the district and stays within the district's budget, gets everybody approval.
All right.
Yeah, we do think it's smart to reuse this existing building. Because they can put a new face on it. and they can look
Fresh.
Look at brand, make it
Yeah.
look brand new. But save money in the long run.
On that notion, provided that we do move forward with this, I would like to announce and possibly form a steering committee of not only the Building and Grounds Committee, but also parents, outside individuals that may have an interest in looking at certain construction renovation. So as we move forward, I will put this out on the website, open it up to individuals. Of course, we'd ask for a letter of interest, their background, and see if they could join us.
And set a limit, we don't want 50 people. on it.
Exactly, yeah. Paul Schott.
I do not have an update.
Ah, geez.
come on.
Why do we pay him?
In terms of some costs,
Takes abuse.
the last time we had this calculated, we were looking at various ranges in terms of increases in debt service. Let's get 20, 25 million, 30 million. Since we're referencing 30 million here tonight, just to get an idea, it would be an increase of about $1.2 million to debt service in addition to what we currently are paying. And this is not even including anything about any refinancing of bonds that's still hanging out there for it. That's strictly looking at what is the cost of a $30 million bond issue.
What is our current debt?
And also, that's without any projected savings of consolidating really two buildings into one.
Well, the last time I just calculated out with principal and interest, it's about $52 million.
How much we pay a year?
About $4 million. And that's prior to PlanCon. Now, what we would be talking about with this, don't count on PlanCon. It's been on hold. There won't be any reimbursement coming from it. We're doing it on our own.
We could submit to PlanCon in the hopes that
Right.
if it does,
That's what we would recommend,
Yes.
because we've had clients, like for instance, Penn Trafford High School renovation was in that time where they thought they weren't going to get any reimbursement. We submitted, we went through all the process for them. It ended up, they did a nice window, it opened back up, they're getting their reimbursement. So it happens. Doesn't happen all the time, but it happens.
I wouldn't bet any money on it.
Right, I wouldn't either, but.
yeah.
But it's worth the.
We're
it's
actually
worth
betting a
the
lot of money on it.
paperwork.
Correct. Last item, the Gateway School District fields, even a part of the renovation of the middle school, of course, we're always looking at utilization of our fields, and we know in this day and age that it's 24/7. Our fields are constantly used. We're always looking at outside sources in order to help fund perhaps some artificial turf fields, sponsorships, etc. We are currently looking at some of those. We're not here to announce anything, but included within the project, and we had mentioned this to Axis, was, of course, if we're going down that road of a middle school, we do have the track, football, soccer field, and baseball field over at Gateway Middle that we would recommend that move forward with artificial turf surfaces. It's just,
And track.
and track as well, yes.
And might I add, if we do draw up designs for the baseball field over there, since it is a huge field, could we not incorporate a girls softball field at the opposite end?
That was the plan, yes. Okay, any questions?
And again, doing your little beautification project with the trees up here, can we incorporate that to the track, along the track at the junior high?
Along the fence there by the parkway.
Yes,
I agree.
that's already halfway across the
Yeah.
track.
The track is in desperate need of repair over there.
Yes.
Um,
The railing along the bleachers
well,
also.
Same thing. So
Yeah,
there's a lot of work that would have to be done.
Bleachers would be
I
moved.
mean,
Yeah, they're bad
right
shape.
now.
Any questions?
What is your thoughts on Mosside Middle if you proceed with the renovations?
I don't even think we're prepared to even discuss that at this point, meaning
Mothball.
it would still be here. What we do with it, I think we'd have to cross that bridge whenever we're prepared to exit the kids, because we would be utilizing this building during the 3-year window of schematic drawing, bid, renovation, because 5, 6 buildings, 7, 8 buildings would still be in use. So I think during that potential 3-year window, we would have to decide what we're gonna do with this building.
Capacity was that building.
Capacity of the new building,
Yeah.
I wanna say 1,100.
And the cafeteria is big enough to handle that?
We would be looking at expanding the cafeteria.
What about the gym, the auditorium over there? Would it be able to hold all of them?
I don't know the seating of the auditorium, but understand even at the high school right now,
You guys, those complex.
it was not designed to house 1,500 students. We went with, I think, 1,000.
We have 1,001
Yeah.
here, 800 at the middle school.
But the shell, the bones of the auditorium, it's solid. It's just needs refreshed.
And again, one more thing, storage. Is there any storage
Yes.
included in this?
Oh yeah, we
And what about the bathrooms? We forgot to do the bathrooms up the high school.
bathrooms would be included.
Are we currently doing the bathrooms up there?
Yes.
That's all the
Second floor.
questions I have.
We're glad. So the administration, once this is all done.
Yes.
Administration intends to stay here.
We're going to remain here until we decide exactly what's going to happen.
With this building?
Yes.
Okay. Oh, that,
Yeah.
okay.
One of my general concerns is that, as we've talked about each building, we've talked about maintenance and improvements that weren't done over the years. And I don't think that's because of negligence. Typically, that's because of a lack of money. So if we put this amount of money into this building going forward, there will be greater financial pressure, and I fear a tendency to have, again, less regular maintenance and improvement done to all the other buildings. And I understand that's always the case, you're making a decision like this, but going forward, I would certainly like to see I guess, a more well-orchestrated plan about how we're going to take care of the buildings we have. We were talking about the signage at University Park. Just about every school we have has wobbly signs and stop signs that have fallen over, and signs on the buildings that are hard to see, and loading docks that are decrepit, and the kind of things that just happen over time because, Mr. Brown said, hey, I need, this crew and a bunch of money to fix this stuff, would say, well, hold on there. So whoever is going to be sitting up here as this goes forward needs to be aware that this building doesn't magically fix all of Gateway's problems. You got an old car and you put in a new motor and you think, oh, I'm set. Yeah, you're not really. You got a whole bunch of other stuff old that's still old too.
And I can, on your way out, we've started this last summer. All of the old posts, which 50 of them, are being pulled up. We have an auger drilling in, and we have solid black powder coated posts with new signs going in. And that is on, you'll see it around the campus. There's actually blue buckets. Matt Wardzinski was, I don't know why he picked blue, was putting a blue bucket over the empty hole. But he's currently doing that right now. So and you'll see those improvements as we move forward.
That's wonderful. The point still remains that
we need money every year for the other buildings.
Right. Absolutely.
and always a little more than we seem to have or that we allocate.
And might I suggest we bring back some summer kids to help with the beautification part of
It
it.
helps with
Doesn't hurt. We
Building
can use
grounds,
them in a lot of
painting.
areas. I mean, the bodies certainly help. Our bodies are getting old. Most of our people are getting up there in age. There's less of them to do it. So the young ones certainly help.
Okay.
If the board decides not to approve this, and you have now, I mean, we have all the buildings that have issues, but now you have two buildings that need major repairs, which would be this one here and the 7th and 8th grade building. Did you look at how much that would cost to get them up to somewhat of a code and
we sure
also
did. We
have
to
that.
get them
Sure did, yes.
refreshed?
The number is insane.
Yeah.
staggering.
Maybe someone has it laying around. That was one of the questions
Yeah.
I asked
We
from
have
the beginning.
Yeah,
And
because-
basically, the weird thing about codes, and I'm not, maybe not getting this right, if we didn't touch any of these buildings,
Right.
apparently no one's terribly concerned about codes. The moment we turn a screwdriver or put a shovel in the ground, all of a sudden everyone's concerned about the codes, and to get these buildings up to code, it was certainly millions of dollars, but I don't
It's a lot of
know how
money.
many. That was
And
just to get it
I
up
was
to
just,
code.
I was just wondering, what the
Absolutely.
figures were.
We're
Would it be more prudent to fix these buildings as opposed to doing that?
Well,
That's what-
I was the one who sort of started this conversation, because I was told these buildings were falling apart and we needed something new. And I was looking around thinking, I live in a 90-year-old house, so I might not be the one to judge. So that's how this conversation and this exploration began. And again, the folks that we contracted to do the feasibility study, do you remember what the number was? Seriously, to come up to code, was it $2 or $3 million or more?
I thought it was more than
I
that.
thought it was more than
It's
that.
more than that. I don't remember the
This was
numbers.
just to get up to code, not to improve, not to
That's what I
fix
was
the
gonna
air
Ramps,
conditioning.
railings,
Yeah.
bathrooms.
Yeah, right. All those details in these schools, the number was, it was crazy.
And we've had those internal conversations about if the board chooses not to proceed, we're prepared then to start making some of those improvements because we're at that point where we have to with the two buildings. And we're okay with that, but we understand that it's still gonna cost.
It's still gonna cost money.
Money.
There's still gonna be a bond
Yeah.
issue moving
Right.
forward. It's gonna
Right.
happen. There's no way we can tap into fund balance like we've done the last 3 or 4 years, $2 to $3 million a clip.
Because
Those
we-
days are perfect time.
We've tapped into the fund balance, just so the public understands, to make those improvements to the other buildings, the elementaries with the air conditioners,
Air conditioning, lighting,
lighting,
all the buildings. all
everything,
5.
LEDs, switching out. So we've
Dectron
made those
system.
improvements to the other buildings, but, you know, we've been kind of sitting on these two, looking for direction. And I think, honestly, we're at that point where this board or the next board in a couple months, I mean, we got to make a decision.
Well, I'm thinking 30 million, 10 million. Like, is it worth going the 30 million route, or is it worth taking a lesser amount, 10 million, and getting both of the buildings
And
into a
keeping
better?
two buildings,
Yeah.
but at 50% capacity.
And that's just bringing the buildings up to
Code.
To code.
It's
That's
not, it's
not-
not dealing with
Aesthetics.
curriculum
Yeah, no
and
fixes,
aesthetics
no
and,
improvements.
And the current way of teaching and upgrading the facilities, it's just bringing them up to code.
So, but to answer your question, let's assume for a moment we had only $10 million to work with.
Yeah.
That would not be the worst thing ever. This school district would move along, but 20 years from now, obviously, it'd have two buildings that we're now, I'm not doing that, you know,
Right.
whatever.
80 years old.
Right, so 20 years from now, that building will still be a relatively freshly renovated building. So, you know, you look at this moment, you also look down the road, and you know, Dr. Short's talked a number of times about that housing plan at the other side of Monroeville that's going to introduce some new amount of students to the district. No one knows how many.
The last 2 years, our kindergarten, which is now first grade, kindergarten enrollment, I mean, we're seeing a heavy increase, so much so that we've had to add teachers first week of school. So, I mean, currently we're sitting on like 4 kindergartens, 4 first grades at Ramsey, University Park. So we're seeing that spike in enrollment that we knew at some point we would get based on housing becoming available and location of Gateway.
I mean, I have just such mixed feelings about this, because then you have this building here, which we don't at this point know what we will do with, because we need it right now to do the renovation, because you've got to keep half here and half there.
Yep.
But then you've got this building, and what happens if we get this huge influx of children, and then we got to renovate this building to be able to, like, then I'm thinking, oh my gosh, then we're going to have another bond. It's a,
Well, that,
I'll be gone from the district by then, but that's a lot.
It is.
And you know, and I'm thinking, okay, this district's gonna take on what, another 20 million or whatever to renovate this building? I mean, that's a lot of money over the next 5, 6, 7, 8 years. I mean, that could be
More
$50
than-
million. I mean, that's a lot of money.
more than that, if we commit to this bond, the idea that someone 7 or 8 or 9 years from now, some board will say, we have the financial wherewithal to do this again, I mean, that seems highly implausible.
You're right.
So if we do this, we're committing this school district to this particular fiscal path for
20 years, 30 years?
Yep.
30 years.
At least. And that's a long, long time.
It's a big decision.
It's a big, that's what I'm saying. It
And
is.
I'd rather-
And understand, when we made that commitment with the high school, there was a lot of debate at the time of building new, currently where the fields, or baseball and softball
Right.
field are located, or renovating the high school. The consensus was we were gonna renovate the high school. Now, we're 15 years into that process, And if you walk into that auditorium, it looks like it's brand new. You go into the cafeteria, the library, the new science rooms. It's a fabulous building. Now, understand we're 15 years into that bond finance, but I think the overall,
Yeah, but that I would attribute to, you know, maintenance. I mean,
Yeah.
you know, you've got a crew that's.
And the
that's
kids
good at what
taking
they're
care of
doing,
it.
and you got a good leader, so,
Mhm.
I mean, that's a big factor in that, so, I don't know, it's.
Money wasn't really a concern back then.
Yeah, and it wasn't a concern, because I was, you know, but, it- I don't know, this not knowing this,
No, I
what
get
we're
it.
gonna
I
do
get
with
it.
this over here just makes me nervous.
Here's something you have to think about, because I live with someone just retired from this field, big markets for schools. If you don't do something today, it's gonna cost you, and you don't have a crystal ball. Imagine what it's
That's the
gonna
thing.
cost you 20 years from now.
Yeah.
So you have to take that into consideration, because none of us know how construction costs are gonna increase. And you know it's not gonna stay the same. I just had a bunch of work done on my house. And seriously, I mean, if I waited another 10 years, I probably would have spent another, who knows how much. So.
Well,
and
that's certainly true, but in our case, our debt will be retired 13 years? Is it 13 years, I forgot, 19 years, 13 years, it's some teen, I don't remember what.
2032.
13 years.
yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you, Paul. So, that's the other side of that coin.
Right.
You know, I'm wildly fond of no debt or minimal debt. I hate, you know America's debt service? The number is astonishing. Debt's a horrible thing. It's, people getting rich off, letting us use some of their money. I hate it.
But
And
the
I
other-
hate spending other people's money even more. If it's
Yeah, and
mine,
I agree.
yeah, I can live with it.
I agree. But the other thing is you're not supposed to have a savings account. As a school district, we don't want to be a Pittsburgh City School that's sitting on millions of dollars. That's
I
not
think
the
that
right
problem
way.
we've solved.
Yeah, I mean, you're not, there's no easy way to do this. There isn't. And you're not gonna
We're
get
okay
it
there.
happen.
I can do that.
Oh, question. Okay, you said we're $52 million our current debt. Okay, so just hypothetically say, all right, we are going to put like 30 million towards the new, so people are going to say, okay, we're already 52 in debt, we're going to add 30 million more to it, so we're going to come up to like 82 million. This is what people are going to think.
A little higher if you throw an interest over return.
Right, so then they're
Probably
going to say,
90, 95.
then they're gonna say, okay, where's this money coming? This is gonna be, you gotta put that out there, because people are gonna say, we're already 52 more,
So we're gonna be raising taxes, or not
Oh,
we.
well, that's,
Whoever's sitting up here is gonna be raising taxes almost yearly.
I mean, there's no other way
There's no way
around.
you can not raise taxes. If you
Right.
don't, you end up like one of our neighbors.
Unless we get an anonymous donor.
So,
Mr.
that's
And
fairly.
and you remember when we started this conversation a couple years ago, the premise was if we're able to sell the Gateway Middle School property, the 20 million that perhaps we were hoping to get would help finance a new building here. Zoning became an issue. Monroeville Council, and it's on public record, refused to rezone it. Even though the planning commission approved it, it got voted down. So we
Politics
listed
at its finest.
a building for sale, zoned residential and school. That is not going to really drive anyone to the table to say, I want that property, if they want to put in a strip mall or whatever. And it's a reality of what we faced trying to sell it for over a year. So that kicked us to the next phase, which was, okay, let's renovate Gateway Middle School. Now, if the board does not want to go down that road, we perfectly understand that. But then we must begin to formulate that plan of improving the two buildings. And understanding that the capacity, 50%, now there's a chance that enrollment could go up, which it could. However, there's some significant needs to the buildings. Currently, they're not air conditioned. We got window units. The auditorium at Gateway Middle
I
School.
believe your facility assessment looked at that, and I think
They did.
those numbers, to
Yep.
renovate them both was $60 million.
Mhm.
That sounds.
Yeah, it was a pretty remarkable number.
I'm just gonna throw this out because this is probably going on right now at council, Dawn, you probably realize this too. They're talking about selling Bel Air Pool. So just a thought, what would it cost to turn this into more like of a pool type thing for community? I know your eyes just bought, but I'm just,
I'm sorry, turn it into what? This building into like a community thing?
well, for the pool, whatever.
Maybe like an outdoor pool.
Well, I'm gonna say more.
Like a wave pool.
Talking more competitive because they're going on, ours is always being used.
Like an
for-
indoor facility.
I'm just throwing that out there.
Options are unlimited. I mean, if we.
Because from what they're saying, they're gonna get $1 million, which is not gonna even touch, from the pool end to sell, but if you're gonna have something sitting idle. That was just a thought. And also thought, Dawn, is there any signs for evergreen coming off of the roads? Garden City?
We'll look.
I'm just.
Yeah, I don't think there is.
No, it's over there.
I mean, no, there used to be a sign, but I think when they took the trees down, the pine trees down, they took that sign, it was kind of like a wooden sign, and they took that down, and it's only on the side of the building, I think.
Right. Because you don't have it coming from here.
Yeah, but you don't have it down on that.
Somebody
no,
painted the
Gardens-
evergreen a different color. So
Yeah,
who's
the evergreens painted
responsible
different
for
colors,
that?
but the
Garden City and
Garden
Center
City
Road.
and,
Center.
yeah,
Are
You
they
have
cutting
nothing.
that?
you're
But
right.
we'll definitely look at the
So
signage.
that was just a thought, I'm not trying to put one over the other.
What if you
And we
actually
still
go
gotta
back to the
replace that
municipality
blacktop with that.
and talk to them about,
They won't do it.
Zoning?
well, we just had to confront the
Not in
pool
that.
situation.
I'd have to see
So
where the
maybe
roots are.
there's
About 20
something
feet.
more big home now. Is that
Preoccupied.
possible? Anybody got that?
It's always gonna be like that.
Yeah.
I mean,
Everything's a possibility.
everything, I mean, we can always ask. I mean, we got some people here that know some people. That know some
You think you
people.
know people, so you think you know people.
So if you want to,
Why are you looking at me?
I don't know, maybe reach out to some, and I could always reach out to the mayor again.
I mean, I just wondered, we're talking about municipality.
Yeah,
Right.
I know.
Give it one last shot.
I can do that.
We were scheduled to do that, and I asked Jesse to conduct another intergovernmental meeting about 8 months ago, and he didn't do it. We have had no intergovernmental meetings for about a year and a quarter. There have been some informational meetings, but no intergovernmental meetings. The public is not permitted to go to the informational meetings. I could not go to the informational meeting. The specific
Well, for what it's
request.
worth, I do remember the last meeting we had, and it must be the meeting you're referring to, devolved into
That
folks
was-
from Monroeville complaining about the stores in the mall.
Yeah.
What we needed was a,
And
PR person.
according to my
Right,
notes
remember the-
before I left, we wanted to come up with a name, a moniker for Monroeville, like Monroeville Cares,
that's right,
something
that's
like
right.
that.
Yeah, there's a little
Monroeville, a
branding
place to
issue.
live.
right.
And the
Branding.
branding expert was supposed to be.
So that was the
Right.
closest we got
We
to
needed an
dealing with
LLB
the
at the
issue.
mall. That was,
Yeah,
selling
that
the
was
Gateway
the
Middle
solution.
School.
Well, I think that, I mean,
But still,
that
Right. So now
intergovernmental is
we
meant to discuss a lot of things. I think on this issue, this has to be more of a one-on-one with the actual council and the actual school board.
It needs to be
Because
done in
you're,
public,
you
though.
can't, that intergovernmental,
Did you hear what I said?
no.
Yeah, it needs to be done in public though, so that the public can hear us say to the council members, the Gateway School District, hands were tied and could not sell the school property because the Monroeville Council did not rezone it commercial. We followed your protocol to see if anyone would step forward for about 9 months. No one stepped forward with a legitimate bid. So we're asking you strongly to reconsider, trusting us, go ahead, rezone it to commercial. Let us try to sell it again, and see if we get a legitimate bid. Now, if you don't trust us, if you think we're gonna bring in someone that's gonna destroy Monroeville or harm Monroeville, then consider what you're doing. You're putting the Monroeville citizens in a position where they're going to go to $95 million in debt because of your decision, which will last 20 years down the road and tie the hands of the school board because this council refused to zone a property that their own zoning commission recommended, the school board recommended, but a few vocal citizens opposed, and the question was never asked, if you play back the tape, who is in favor of rezoning? The question was asked, who's against it? A bunch of hands went up, said, I'm against it, and the question was never asked, who's in favor of it? Because there would have been a lot of people at that meeting that said, I'm in favor of it. So the council is operating in a deficit right now, and they're binding our hands illegitimately. So I think the intergovernmental committee director should convene a meeting, bring those people to the table, have a public exposition of where we are right now. The superintendent and the buildings and ground director and the finance director should let the public know where we are and where we're headed over the next 20 years so that the public can speak and so that we can follow the public's opinion on this. Does the public really want us to dig a hole this deep for the next 20 years? Or are they willing to take a chance that we could come up with a very nice plan to build a new school for what Jack said, $34 million.
So who replaced Jesse that's Don? So it seems like a reasonable step to take. You want to get that together?
Sure.
Can I add one thing to Dawn? Take pictures of places in Monroeville that have signs where pieces of property with nothing on it says commercial. Because the council was objecting to not knowing what was going to go into that building. If you have commercial pieces of property that are blank slates, they don't know what's going to be built there if they get sold. So you need to take that excuse and throw that out the window, because then you can't have any land in Monroeville commercial unless you absolutely know for 110% what's going on. So no deals or lots should ever show commercial, because you don't know. That was their excuse for not doing it. You could do a little slideshow like you had tonight and say, this says commercial, it's a piece of property, you have no clue.
It's right across from Gateway Middle, there's all that property that's commercial.
Right.
Well, yeah, where the forefront dermatology is, that whole thing is almost empty in there now. It's almost all empty there now.
As you turn up the test this, there are signs on that hillside that say commercial. I have no clue what would go in there, but that's.
Where?
As you turn up off of 22 and head towards turning out College Park, there are signs, and Bobby can attest to
It's right
that,
across
that
from
say
the little
commercial,
giant.
and they're just pieces of property. So if their excuse is, we don't know what's going in there, say, then how can you justify these signs and allow these to be commercial under those circumstances?
Yeah.
No, Dawn, you're gonna be on a time frame here because we go with this. We go with time.
We have a motion to adjourn.
Yeah, I'll be happy to.
Second.
Thank you, everyone.